So, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, whenever you're watching this. And we are here on the Down the Lane podcast with Bobby Randall and Miles Reese. And we're going to talk Chesham and generally just chew the fat over what is going on at the club at the moment. So, Bobby, over to you. Chesham away on Saturday. Obviously, we'll be there. What's your thoughts?
Well, as you can tell, we're not in lovely sunny Horsham tonight as our game got postponed. So we look ahead to our game against Chesham. Their game tonight as well got postponed, so they'll be the same as us. We're kind of probably looking at getting a bit of match fitness towards Saturday, but both of us will be going into it having played a game last Saturday. Um, Obviously, the gods and the weather can determine whether we play that game on Saturday. We're yet to find out, but no, we come into February with some very tricky fixtures, pretty much playing everyone in the top half of the table against the title favourites Dorking and Torquay as well. But we look at one game at a time. To be fair, Chesham. I mean, they beat us. Everyone's beating us at the moment. So yeah, Chesham beat us 2-1 at our place. Obviously, we scored first with Freddie Carter, and then they scored. Then they scored from, I think it was a corner. Then they had two penalties. One was saved, and then we gave one away straight after, and they converted that. But looking ahead to it, I mean, I said off camera, but this month defines our season. We could come out of February being 10 or more points from safety, or we could come into March looking with 1 point from safety. Yeah, and I think now's the time that sort of everyone like the fans need to come together and sort of support the boys, because none of us want to see this team go down. I think all three of us can agree we don't want to go down. It's that the league below is scary. It's got some teams that I've never heard of before, and places like Canvey Island, and no one wants to go there. So and if you're watching from Canvey, I'm sorry, but no one wants to come here. But no, I personally, it's just at the moment the atmosphere around the club, it's getting quite stressful because everyone's in the same boat. Everyone's mood at the moment is we are most likely going to go down this. We are going to go down, and looking at this run of fixtures in February, you it's just it's not hard to tell, but these fixtures don't favour us at all. Um, we've obviously not won loads, but we gave Dorking a run around at their place, but then you look at teams like Torquay who slapped us 7-0, and Torquay are reasonably favourites for the league here, so they're gonna come to us knowing we're fighting for our lives and they're fighting for the title. And if you kind of look at it favours Torquay. They've got a league to win. They've got promotion on their cards, whereas we're battling to sort of stay in this division and whatnot, and trying to regain some pride. But I think just from where I'm looking at it, it's just really hard because I don't want to see us go down, but am I going to say we're going to go down? It's like a 15% chance we stay up now. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm sat on the fence at the moment.
So, Miles, I'm going to ask you the same question that I asked Bobby, which was, how do you fancy Saturday at Chesham? But Bobby seemed to tell us all about February, which I wasn't looking forward to February anyway. So, yeah,
uh,
Saturday Chesham.
Yeah, I'll discuss Chesham. So, yeah, I mean, Chesham have always been a bogey side since they come into the league last season. We got two draws against them last year, and then obviously lost, as Bob said, um, this season to them. They sort of like epitomise, I think, this league. Now there's a really tough place to go. They sort of epitomise how anyone could beat anyone on their day. Like they've just got a really good team of like a really sort of well bonded, and everyone sort of knows their jobs. Well-oiled machine, the Chesham really. Like there's no particular standout player. They haven't really got anyone that's that flashy, or and they haven't really got a top goal scorer from what I've seen either. They're just sort of all know their jobs, I think, and are very effective at it. Combined that with a pretty poor pitch, which we're not even sure the game will go ahead on Saturday because they had their game called off on Tuesday night against Tottenham. Yeah, it's going to make for a very, very tough afternoon. They beat Dorking as well down at their grounds. They're no mugs, as we know. Yeah, expecting a very, very tough, very, very tough game for us. If it's one of those games where, in some ways, the pressure's off a bit because we are away, they will consider themselves as favourites. We're going onto a pitch that, like I said, isn't needed to play on. So I think a lot of it favours them, which could work in our favour because I think we're not particularly good when the pressure's on us, which is what we've seen for the last few games. So maybe a game where we don't really expect much out of could surprise us with Chesham.
I hope you're right. And obviously, we heard from David when we spoke with regard to he thinks we'll get a point up there. I'm not in that camp, unfortunately. I don't see. I know we're improving, but I think we're playing a side that are banging form at the moment. I think they've won 3 out of their last 4, and drawing against Maidenhead along the way. And at the end of the day, they're banging form, and we're not. So, I mean, I kind of hope and would like it if they think, oh, we've got a bit of an easy game coming, and they kind of try and take it easy, and we just step up our game from what it's been. I think we are still making too many silly mistakes. We've got supporters that are not happy, and we know they're not happy. We've got players that are not playing with a smile on their face, and I don't know what we need to just to give us that little bit of a boost, to give us that little bit of a a kickstart, and it could just be one win, but I'm sure the same as Bobbie was saying a minute ago when we're talking about who we've got to face. I think that the players are obviously going to be looking at that and know that we've got a bit of a run coming that's not good. So, yeah, I mean, I hope we get something up there, but if I'm honest, I probably don't believe we will. And that's, of course, if it's on. Obviously, their game was called off tonight, so if there's too much more rain on their grass pitch, then that might be off, and our next game might be home to Maidstone next Tuesday, which, will be another one that possibly won't be the greatest. Another team that are in form at the moment. So there we go. So anything else? I mean, we've obviously got Chesham, we've got Maidstone next Tuesday at home, but we'll be recording one on Sunday, either after the Chesham game or, but pre-Maidstone. What else is on your mind, guys? Let's just chew the fat a little bit.
I think it's just I mentioned it a minute ago, but it was, and you said there about it, it's just supporters. Like I'm not gonna sit here and dig anyone out, but yes, you have the right to feel annoyed, and I think we all are. It's just you compare you got last season here we were in the title fight, you got this season here we're in the relegation fight. We've seen crowds drop, we've seen crowds grow, and that's by no fault of anybody's. If a team's playing well, you're gonna get the crowds in, and you're gonna get people. You're gonna get upwards of 2,500, 3,000, and you're gonna. But in situations like us, you're gonna stick to your 700s. So I think it's the duality. It's the duality of man, really. Sort of. I think into this season, obviously, coming off of last season, we were obviously we're going to be favourites for the title. Obviously, having Matt Gray in, people thought, a National League winning manager, a League Two manager, stepping down to National League South, that Eastbourne are going to do really well. And then you kind of look back at it, and you think, wow, was Matt Gray actually the right man for the job? And that comes to now. I don't want to say he's put us in this situation. It just feels harsh to pin the blame onto one man. But in my eyes, I think everyone got a little bit overexcited for Matt Gray, I don't know if anyone wants to argue that. I'm all for it.
No, I think you're right. I think he looked a very good appointment when he came in. I don't I don't see that it's just Matt Gray that's put us in this position. To be fair, I mean, we heard from Dave on Sunday. 7 or 8 of the starting lineup in the last couple of games have been Tommy players. So I think, Tommy's been at the club for long enough now, I think, to have installed, what he needs to. And I might be a little bit controversial here. But, look, this is our platform. We're here to say what we feel. But I get what you're saying about the supporters, Bob. And I do think that, unfortunately, we are trying to compare chalk with cheese, because we're trying to compare what we had last year, the atmosphere we had last year when we was at the top of the league, to either to this season. And even if we go one season back, we're trying to compare a season when by this time in the season, we'd got Adam in and the performances had started looking better and stuff like that. And this league has got harder. This league 100% in the last 2 years has got harder. But I think Tommy's had his chance. Tommy's had his time to get the team playing how he wants. I do understand the whole, and this is where I might be a bit controversial, and if I'm speaking out of place, then, you guys can tell me. But, we keep hearing from Tommy about we're supporters support. We keep, we've heard that from Hugo on Friday's pre-match. And we're hearing it from Simon and, people at the club. But at the end of the day, for me, people at the club need to lead by example. And we've all taken a turn at sitting in the stands. And I just think that, I don't like to say this because I was an advocate of Tommy coming in, but I think in some respects it's a little bit rich for him to say your supporters support when he's the captain of the ship. And some of them players, I think some of them players are not playing freely because maybe they're a little bit frightened of what's coming, and that might be, that's hard to say. And I know other people have kind of got that opinion as well. But look, we're here to give our opinions. Miles, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I was going to bring it up to you anyway. On the podcast tonight, I know the interview from Friday was with Hugo and not with Tommy's, but at the end of the day, Hugo and Tommy are quite aligned in how they feel, right? And I thought it was quite hypocritical for Hugo to come out with a statement of saying, we need to create a positive, nurturing environment for them, and that comes from obviously the management team and the atmosphere in the grounds. But then we've had time in the stands, Hornchurch away, where we just, I'm not going to say it in the podcast because it's not fair to repeat sort of those lines that were given by Tommy. But for those players on the pitch, I understand that football's a more of a cutthroat industry than most businesses, and a lot of things you say in football you can't get away with saying in other businesses or lines of work. But I think some of the stuff that he comes out with is a bit over the top sometimes. It's a bit aggressive. I think it's a bit counterintuitive as well, especially for a team that's young, needs that support in regards to if they've done something that's not quite as it should be, maybe a bit of constructive criticism or leaving that to behind closed doors as well. I don't think it's a great look when the manager, or as you say, the captain of the ship is calling out their players, employees, whoever it may be, in front of everybody essentially. I don't think it sends a great message out. And also, like those players on the bench. I was thinking the Hornchurch example sticks out for me because those players on the bench that were potentially going to come on or maybe in the backgrounds, they can hear what the comments that Tommy is saying, and then when they're coming on, they're going to think, oh, if I make a mistake here, he's going to go ape at me pretty much. So yeah, I don't think it sets a very good precedent. And I don't want to keep comparing back to Adam because Adam's for one reason or another, right, he's gone now, but he's the only example we've really got of someone that's a top level manager for this level that we've seen in the club. And I just feel like that's not the way he dealt with things at all. I think he had a quite a good balance between giving players, a clip around the ear retrospectively and a bit of a telling off if he needed to, but also putting the arm around the shoulder. I remember seeing after one game, I've no idea what game it was, but I remember seeing him sort of sitting in the centre circle with Dan Quick and just talking through something after the game, and it looked like just sort of like a little father and son relationship. It was quite nice to see. And I was saying to some of the other boys about this the other day. Obviously, we can't account for what Tommy's like behind closed doors. So if it's Tommy's, excellent to the man management wise, and they all get on with him fine behind closed doors, then whatever he does on match day, as long as the players understand the boundaries, that's fair enough. But we haven't seen that side of it, so it's sort of difficult to judge fully. So I'm not going to place, my full judgment. I'm going to hold a bit back, but yeah, it's tough to hear as fans to support a side that's not doing well, and then sort of see the person that's in charge doing what we're being told not to do. It just doesn't feel right. Like we've got to all be pulling as one. I know we obviously got different roles in that, but yeah, I think that's a bit of a rich message to give to supporters.
To be fair, Mark,
Bobbie?
I mean, exactly, Mars. I mean, I think, and you compare some of the previous managers we had. So you've got Mark Beard, you've got Adam, you've got Matt Gray, and then you've got Danny Blur, and then you've got Tommy, and you look at they're all of them are very different managers, and maybe some managers are the same, some managers are different with players, but you look at people like Adam and like Danny, they were very they were a people's person. All the players got along with them. If there was an issue, it would get sorted. And players weren't maybe they don't, but players weren't worrying what is being said of other players in the squad. I think your example, Miles, of the Hornchurch was great, and I think obviously we saw Adam a couple of times like to get a booking every now and then for screaming on the touchline, and that was Adam. He was a very passionate person, and you can't argue that Tommy is also passionate. Like it's Tommy's second spell at the club, and obviously he obviously cares, but you then look he obviously cares about the club. Then you look at it as the players, it can be maybe quite scary for them. Because you scream and shout at a player, and it can completely knock their confidence out of them. And then you have a completely different player, and that player doesn't play well. Then you bring on another player who then gets screamed at, and it carries on. So I'm not having any digs at Tommy here, but there's different managers, and they all do it differently.
He said it himself though in the fans forum meetup with him when that was, I can't remember, was it November time maybe? Yeah. He said that some players you got to give a bit of an arm around the shoulder. I think he said, "Here, kitty, kitty." That was the exact phrase. People that Wade will know. And then some players you got to give more of a sterner approach to. So yeah, I mean exactly. We only go off what we see from 3 to 5 o'clock, right? There could be a lot of examples of him behind closed doors being excellent man management, and we don't get to see that. So we only just giving a fan's point of view right on it. And I think also a lot of people were saying, well, but Mark White, Dorkin, he's quite well known for blowing up completely on the touchline about officials, his own players, etc. But what we see behind closed doors from Mark, or behind-ish closed doors, I'll get onto that, with a bunch of amateurs, is that he's an excellent man management. He gets on personally with all the players. he has banter with them, but also they know the liners as well. And it's obviously tough to make a full judgment on Tommy unless you know that context as well. But I just sort of worry for that part of it, especially with the whole ethos of the club as well, because Simon's massive on looking after your staff, empowering people, and then I'm not sure if that fits into that fully.
No, fair enough.
I can only agree, and I mean Hornchurch was probably it was one of the ones for me really where I, you know, you heard him, we were stood right behind him for the whole game, and we heard certain things. I mean, we even got signed at one point, right, because everyone else was useless. Um,
I'm still waiting. My phone's on ringer.
I get that sometimes it can be taken as a bit of a joke. And I like Tommy. As I've said, I was an advocate of him to come to the club, and I think I'd still like to see him at the club for a long time, because I do believe he cares about our football club. And on the other side of the coin, he does sign players that have played with him before. So, maybe it is a little bit different in the dressing room. But I just, I know, listen, a couple of fans have said to me, that's a bit rich, and that was the saying they'd used. And that's why I brought that up tonight. We had a chance to chew the fat, basically. We haven't got a game to talk about. And we're here to discuss what the fans want to talk about, and obviously you can all put your comments below. Keep them clean, keep them nice, obviously. But tell us what you think as supporters of the club. How do you feel when you see that pre-match? I just know that it turns me a little bit off, and off of the fact that I thought Tommy was 100% right for the club, and now I do have little doubts, only because of what I see. And I know if that was my manager talking to me like that, I never played at a high level, but I had a game or two. I wouldn't be having that. I wouldn't be having that. And I think, you compared it right there, Miles, in the fact that Adam was that little bit different. He was that. Well, he was massively different, but he put his arm around the players. He would still have a pop at a player, but there was a time and a place for that, and that's that's how I see it.
Yeah, there's a few different things with Tommy that I'm not sure exactly why this is the time that these sort of things come out. There's a few different areas of like different grumblings, I feel. And obviously, whilst the manager in charge, we've got to back him, but equally as a fans podcast, we've got a sort of a duty to raise points that we're all thinking, right, and we're all concerned about. Obviously, that we've discussed that in quite a bit of detail regarding Tommy's style of communication, I guess. And then I think the other parts, Dave Blackmore mentioned it on last podcast, was regarding sort of square pegs in round holes with the tactics. It feels like I know Simon said on the podcast he did with us that he had a conversation with Matt Gray about changing his style or trying something new. And it just feels like with Tommy, we're just doing rinse and repeat every week. We've lost 5 on the bounce now. And has the system really changed that much? I felt like we were doing quite well with a couple of number 10s in behind one striker. And now we've got 2 strikers up front that don't really work well together, in my opinion. I thought they sort of the goal in particular was a bit better on Saturday. But I'm not sure if Mullins is a striker, and Gold's been far off what Pemi could ever deliver for us. So yeah, I think that's probably the grumbling as well, and sort of playing George in the 10 too, which again is not his best position. And like why is Arthur playing left wing back? Like there's just a few things we're starting to see now where is he maybe being too stubborn, or is it him not being quite tactically sharp enough? It's hard to say again without any context, but
No,
it's just
exactly.
when we see a team sheet on Saturday, I can't remember exactly what the lineup was, but we all thought it might be Mullins at right wing back and the 2 strikers up front, Corbett in 10 with Grout and May started. and then was it Taylor on the left? I think it probably would have been. That's how logically everyone playing in their best position it would have worked, but for some reason he went different. There might be a tactical nuance to that. I'm not entirely sure, but to me, playing your 25 goal season striker at attacking midfield, whilst you've got a brilliant attacking midfielder, then playing further backwards, and then putting your best young player who's showed he can more than match this level at wing back is just it's just crazy to me. I'm just not sure what he's doing there in that sense. So yeah, that's probably something tactically that we're all starting to question at this point. And then the other one, just to tee you boys up, I guess, is the signings too. Like, I think the signings on the whole have been fairly good. He's got some quality in with like Phipps, Williamson. I really like May. But there are a lot of players that he's worked with before, and I get managers have people they bring to certain clubs. Like Murray had Bird and Lingenza and a couple of others probably I've missed. They worked with him before, but it's a tad concerning that he mainly relies on his own network. That could be well because it's mid-season, so maybe it gets a summer. Obviously, players are more open to moving due to contract situations, that sort of thing, not sort of disrupting the season flow. So we're giving the benefit of the doubt there from myself anyway. That recruitment-wise, maybe he's just trying to get whoever he knows is available at the time. But that's another concern for me. Is just what his whole network is like, I guess, and what the future of our signs will look like. Particularly if we go down the league because he hasn't got any experience from the Isthmian Premier. We've bought players from Aldershot in the National League, Kings Lynn. So will that be a challenge going forward in the Isthmian League if he hasn't got those contracts from managing at a level. So I just wanted to get your boys' thoughts on those two different things. Obviously, you want to take one each, you can, or just share your thoughts on both.
Well, yeah, I was just want to mention on signings. I've just literally loaded up Twitter and seen that Ryan Sanford has joined Edfleet on a permanent deal. Yeah,
breaking news on the podcast.
Yeah, breaking news on the podcast. There you go. There's some transfer news for you. That former goalkeeper Ryan Sanford is now at Edfleet. But no, signings. Yeah. I'm going to compare him to the start. I'm going to compare him this season, last season, this season, and this season again. But no, last season you could tell. The start of last season, sorry, you could tell that we were going to go. We were going to go for it this year. Obviously, we just come off the back of another relegation fight, and we spent very nicely in the summer. We brought in some cracking players. And even in January we did as well. Like Jason Adigan, like that. He honestly turned that season in. He kicked into like a title charge pretty much. Obviously, we didn't get the title, but the position where we were attracting the better players. And look at this summer.
That's part of it as well. Not Matt will mention it. We can't particularly entice players to come to us in the relegation in December.
And there's the whole thing about that people say that players don't want to come to us because we live outside of London. And in my eyes, I partly believe it, and yes, I don't partly believe it. Last season, I'm using Adigan as an example, and maybe even George joined a bit later, but no, Adigan obviously is London. He played for Dagenham, and we were obviously high flying last year, and I don't think there's players that want to come to us because of Eastbourne. That players don't want to come to us because of where we are in the league. No top player is going to look at us right now and think that's a good step in my career, because it might not be. No, if we didn't have George or Pemmy, and we offered them, I don't think they would come to us now. And that
players can see that the manager's going to be here long term, and
exactly.
If they go down, what's the
yeah.
Then I think it depends on circumstances, right? Because players, I'm not sure what their contract lengths are like, but maybe if you're just on like a short term deal, you're sort of keeping yourself in the shop window, because at the end of the day, players, as much as we'd love them to love the club and want to stay, they also got to think about their own careers, right? So, if it's just to keep yourself fit and stay at National League South level, then it still could be a good option in full time, right?
Yeah, and you look at Brad Barry, for example. I mean, that man loved this club with his passion. It was almost like his second home, and then we've lost him this season. Yes, he's playing down the road at Hastings, but yeah, it's frustrating because obviously, again, coming back to Tommy likes to work with his own players because he knows what he's going to get out of them. And the same for Adam as well. Yeah, and I'm repeating what you said, Miles, but I think partly sort of the middle of like end of August into September and October, when we weren't getting anybody through the door, was because we were slowly starting to fall down into the relegation zone, and that's why it's hard to get better players in new positions, because no one was going to come to a team that's now 7 points from safety, staring down the barrel at relegation for the first time in the relegation for the first time out of this league in our history. So and then if we were, and then go on Barry.
Yeah, and that's something that I looked at and thought about probably 5-6 weeks ago now. I thought to myself, look, we are in it. We've been in that situation all season. We were starting at looking at signing players and stuff like that, and we're going to this league or the league above, and we're looking for loanees and stuff like that from higher level clubs and that have played higher, and we needed that bit of experience and whatever else. But I just think that at the end of the day, I think in a situation like this, and we kind of had this with Adam, we had a very big squad. We had numbers, and maybe alongside bringing these experienced players in, maybe it was time to look for, players that were absolutely banging it in the league below, who have got that confidence, who had that, and still have. There's players that have, that are playing for certain clubs out there that, they might have jumped at the chance. And I just think that now it's probably too late. We've got what we've got. I don't think we're going to be seeing many more through the door, because of the situation we're in, and that's so we've got to work with what we've got. And
I don't think it's too late,
do I think the players have the quality to get out of it? Yes, I do. I mean, I think the players that have come in, I think they're good enough. But it's just getting that kickstart, isn't it? It's just bump starting the car before, to start revving it up. And we keep sitting there thinking, oh, next week could be the bump start. Next week could be the bump start. Well, do you know what? In a minute, we're going to run out of weeks. I think we're getting to that stage now where we are, the hill's getting... The hill that we were trying to roll down to start the car we're getting closer and closer to the bottom, and that's the that's the issue.
Barry, I just want to point about you saying that signing players from the league below, and there's one team that comes to it, and it's our noisy neighbours down the road, and it's Worthing. In the summer, they signed a few players from the division below. Yes, okay, it was under a different manager, but no, they signed some of the best players from the divisions below, even, and look at them now. They're flying. I don't understand what the recruitment was or is, or it's frustrating because there's players out there in the summer that we could have got, and we could have this whole situation, this whole meaning of this podcast might not have existed. We could be talking about how we're 12 points clear in the league, and we can start celebrating that we're going to win the league. But no, we're sat here on what is the 3rd of February 2026 in a relegation fight, and it's just a relegation fight. We're not getting players in the door. There's players who aren't playing with a smile on their face. It's just really frustrating.
Yeah, Bob.
And I think that is all down to the manager. I mean, we heard from David the other day about, the managers have got it's them that have signed the players. So, and he admitted that the club did get it wrong in appointing Matt Gray. I suppose, as we said the other day, we're all football managers when it comes to it, right? We've all got our own players that we pick and whatever else. Miles, what was you going to say?
No, I was going to agree in the sense that we can pick the bones over the summer all we like. I think it's predominantly down to potentially Matt Gray's style of football and his general potential contacts that he had available, and not being at all local to the south coast, being based in London. That all those factors sort of came together by the sound of it, what we're hearing from Simon, etc. But just on the whole, like, we're not going to get you boys saying we're not going to get many more players in the door for the end of the season. I sort of disagree. I feel like non-league's so fluid in its nature, right? Like, no one's got a fixed contract at certain levels, or players are happy to terminate their contracts to get minutes. So I don't think it's too late for recruitment to get players through the door. And you mentioned players from like lower leagues. Those players will be hungry for a chance. If you're playing at step 3, step 4 to get to full-time football in step 2, selfishly again to put themselves in the shop window potentially for a move in the summer. If they can show that they can get 15, 16 good games under their belt. East One Borough, then even if we do go down, either it's a good chance then to push on with us again next season in the Isthmian League, or if they want to stay, or if we stay step 2, hopefully they can then progress again from there. Or Simon wants this club to be a place to grow talent, essentially, whether that be someone that's 30 or 21. So I don't think it's too late to get recruitment in. But in terms of the season, like Barry said, we're on our last leg now, really, aren't we? Really, I mean, David Blackmore gave it a 25% chance. Bob, how do you say 50-50?
I said 15. I said 15.
Yeah.
I said 15.
Yeah,
15.
probably more where I am. I think I said after Saturday, I think I said 5% on the way back. I'm probably back up to about 10% just because I've had a chance to calm down slightly. But yeah, I don't think it's too late for recruitment, but I think feel like the whole squad needs time to gel as well.
No, Miles. You said that there's some players hungry wanting to play for Eastbourne Borough. If we go down next year, we are going to be. I'm going to hold my hand up, probably one of the, or maybe the biggest club in that division. Take it with a pinch of salt.
Certainly budget-wise, it got to be.
No, but there will be players that will see us in that division and go, they have a chance of winning that league. Yeah. I want to come to them and show what I'm made of, so I can get a move higher up the pyramid.
Ooh. Yeah, hopefully you just use it as a springboard, right, to bounce like straight back if you do go down.
So I'm not so sure about that. I think there are clubs in the step below that are ploughing a lot of money into football clubs because it's a cheap way of them becoming a big fish, if that makes sense. I mean, we can look at what's happening down the road, from us, and the ground at United has been, massively improved. The playing side has been improved, and that's obviously steps below, not just a step. So I think, personally, I think it's going to be very difficult. It's going to be very difficult, and the thing is as well, it's like, I think the problem with when you get relegated, and the expectation or the aim is to bounce straight back up. You've got to consider that you're going into that season on the back of a relegation, and that takes a massive turnaround. That takes a turnaround from the playing staff, because we all know now that, let's be fair, the season used to end in April and it'd start in September, and they had like 3, 4, 5 months off, 5 months off. Now they're lucky if they get 3 weeks off,
No, exactly.
And that's the issue. Is how do you turn it around in that short space of time? And that's where you need experienced people, and and we've just got to pray and hope that that's what happens, because I certainly don't want to be. Don't get me wrong, it'd be lovely in some respects to have a Boxing Day, New Year's Day derby with Lewis again, just for,
yeah. We've not played them. We've not played them competitively in the league since, I assume we both came down from the National League. They might have been that, yeah.
Right? So it would have been.
They got back-to-back relegation, didn't they? They got relegated from the conference in the South straight away, didn't they?
And this is the problem. This is the problem when you're on the back of that relegation. How hard is it? How hard is it to actually turn it around?
You've got a target on your back when you go down. You go down, everyone in that league looks at you and goes, "You shouldn't be here. And if you're that bad, then we can beat you."
Well, when you're the bigger club as well, you're everyone's cup final, right? At the end of the day, we did it this year. You look at the start of the season, and we was looking out for, right, when are we playing Ebbsfleet? When are we playing Dagenham? When are we playing? And there were teams and clubs there that we would look for when we were playing them, because they were our big fish. They were the ones we wanted to turn over. And we're going to be that team, or one of them teams, if we go down. So
I think how we're going to bounce back or not is just stability, and that comes in my head in three different ways. Firstly, at board level, I think we've had enough reassurance that that's completely sound. Simon's not going anywhere if we go down. Alan will still be here, etc. So there's no dramas there at all. Management, I'm not sure if there's any clauses at all in Tommy's contract, whether he wants to stay if we went down. I have no idea. But whether we can, if they feel Tommy's right one to take us forwards, keep him and get him signed on early doors. We don't want a situation like last time, which feeds on to my third point about like late recruitment. So if Tommy was to go, we need to get a strong replacement in. Quickly, essentially, to not lose too much time in the summer. And then the third bit of stability is with the players. Obviously, we're going to have to consider whether it's worth going hybrid or part-time. It'd be good to get your boys' thoughts on that. But that's something else to bear in mind, and how much the playing squads will A, want to stay, B, get poached, or C, isn't good enough, unfortunately. I think the player will fall into one of those three camps.
No, that's good.
What's your boys' thoughts on the full-time, part-time debate?
I think looking at next season, I think you mentioned the word stabilize, whatever, but stabilize that one. But you look, next season, you see a lot of teams get relegated, and they go, "We'll go one season to settle ourselves, and the second season we'll go for it." If we go down, I don't want to see that. And I want to see, as you said there, Miles. I think staying full time in that division. Okay, yes, it might be a little bit embarrassing that we're a full time team in step 3, sorry, but I think full time is the best thing for us. It means we can utilize our budget to its maximum capability. With our budget, as I said earlier, we should, in quotation marks, walk the league. You look at Folkestone, and they've spent the cash, and they're 14 points clear, mostly looking like they'll be playing National League South football next year. So I think full time in the division below is probably the right idea. I think Barry, by the looks of it, is going to argue the case here.
No, I just think that we've heard from Simon, we've heard from Dave at the weekend, and that he's assured us that them conversations will be happening in the background. Simon came out in his programme notes and said, look, it's not anything that we want, but if we go down, we're coming back bigger and better. So you would think that somewhere along the line, them conversations have been had between Simon, Alan, the board, and Tommy and maybe the players. But they will have a plan on relegation, and if they haven't got one now, they're going to have one. They're going to have one very soon, because at the end of the day, you need to plan for every eventuality. Miles, you hit on something about Tommy's contract, whether he has got a clause in it. Either way, I mean, he might say, look, I don't want to manage at the level below. And the club might have got him in, and he may have said, look, I will keep you up. And if that's one of the conditions of the contract, so let's say that either of them are in the contract, either way, whether it's on Tommy's side or whether it's on the club side. For me, the way you do this is, once it is confirmed that we are going down, he goes. He goes. Whether that's on his side or the club side or whatever, he goes. He goes. And then you appoint a manager for the last 4 or 5 games of the season that can see the players you've got, can scout already. So literally, a lot of the contracts obviously go to the 1st of June, right? But we know that conversations are being had before then. Players will talk to each other. Players will have an idea of where they want to play. If you're out of contract and you're playing at Eastbourne Borough and you think, well, actually, I want to be here next year, then you're waiting for that call from Eastbourne Borough. If you're playing at I don't know, Hastings or Dorking or wherever you're playing, whatever club you're playing at, if you're thinking, well, actually, I would enjoy going down to Eastbourne Borough, you're waiting for that call. And we all know with agents and stuff like that, as soon as the 1st of June comes, and everyone's a free agent, that's when the calls will be happening. So, but you will have an idea, or you would have, we've heard from the club that, look, when there's a target, they go out and get it. That's Alan's job, is to go and get the target. The manager decides who he wants. So if the manager tells Alan, look, I want them 5, 6, 7 players, and I'm going to release, these 5, 6, 7 players in order to get them, there will be a budget. We heard from David again on Sunday saying that actually financially it won't be a massive loss to the club. We obviously know that Simon's been investing a lot of money into the club, but hopefully the paddle and the other stuff around will generate an income into the club, which will help Simon not put as much into the club, because there's going to come a point where Simon says that, I just can't keep sustaining. We heard him in the podcast that we had with him, where he said, I think he used the words, I'm living a nightmare, and he's watching his children's inheritance go down the drain. That can't happen forever. That isn't going to happen forever. So, the club needs to not become sustainable, because I don't believe any club, I honestly don't know any club, probably EFL down, that is actually sustainable and that runs, without money being invested. And that's obviously there maybe where the commercial team need to keep that money coming in. But does it, look, them conversations are going to be had. But I just pray and hope that whoever is in charge next season, whether that's Tommy or somebody new, the decision is taken early, the targets are set early, And that's whatever league we're in. You know, if we manage to avoid relegation this year and we say, right, we're going to have a massive go at it next year, you know, let's get the targets in, let's get the players we're going to release out, but let's do it early and let's make sure, because we all saw what we could do with a club where the manager was in place over the summer, and that was with Adam. You know, we avoided relegation. We had Adam in charge over the summer. And even in the history of the club, you know, you go back to, you know, we always say that the best manager Eastbourne's ever had is Gary Wilson, right? Because he got us from the county league to the, you know, the Vanarama National, as it was at the time. And he did that in 9 years. All right, we was lucky with a bit of restructuring and stuff like that. But the players stayed together. And I've said this so many times. You know, these players were playing a levels above themselves because they knew how each other played as a team. And there's massive, you know, look at Dorking. Dorking do exactly the same. You know, they don't change. They change a few, but they don't have wholesale changes. And I think we didn't for one season, and we had a massive tilt at it. And I'd like to see that again this year.
Barry, I think the saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Well, it fits perfectly.
Exactly that. But unfortunately, at the moment, something is broken. You know, it needs fixing. We're looking at wrapping this up now. We've been on for 50 minutes, I think. Obviously discussing one major issue. Miles, your last thoughts on today's pod?
Yeah, it's obviously a difficult one to record, right? Because none of us want to be in the situation at all, and it's, you know, sort of stark the difference between this and last season. I think all we can really do now as supporters is sort of, you know, sit tight, try and back the lads where possible. I think it's difficult if you're getting beat every week. But yeah, fair play to anyone that's travelling to Chesham, and obviously we'll see a lot of people for Maidstone. And you never know with these games, they could work in our favour. I'm just trying to be optimistic as possible. I still feel like we'll go down. Personally, that's my judgment on it currently, but obviously love to be proved wrong. So yeah, maybe the games we got coming up, which are very, very tough on paper, will work in our favour if the pressure's on them a bit to win against a team like us that's struggling, compared to the games we've had where people have been saying it's been must wins and 6 points, which I'd agree with most of the time. But yeah, hopefully we can see a change of fortunes when we least expect it. That's my optimistic half glass full approach to the end of the podcast.
So, Bobbie, yourself, closing thoughts?
Listen, no game. This month is a month of massive games for us as a football club and a fan base. Listen, I'm saying the same as Miles. We're probably down as it is. If something miraculous happens come the end of February and we're sat here saying we might stay up, I'll be in shock. But listen, people say one game at a time, but each game repeats itself at the moment for us. So are we going to go to Chesham and get a result? Probably not. We'll probably part of me wants to say draw. The rest of me wants to say we're going to lose. So I reckon we'll probably end up losing. Yeah, I mean, I hope this pod is, for people watching, has kind of opened up what we have to say, us for the fan base, and hope other people can too. So yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously we'll be heading up to Chesham on Saturday, hoping to obviously see a win. I don't want to go anywhere and see us get beat, and still hoping that we can turn it round. But you know, it's we're all talking about percentages. We're all talking about percentages very low that we think we're going to stay up. You know, and to me that means we're not only in a relegation fight, we are deep in very deep into a relegation fight. And again, I don't know how the man management works, but again, I don't want to have another pop at Tommy because I do like Tommy. But you know, when we keep hearing we're not in a relegation fight, it's like, is that? It frightens me. It frightens me to think that our leader thinks we're not. But you know, at the end of the day, listen, we're going to Chesham. Hopefully, we'll get points up there. One, hopefully 3, but
Pushing
we'll
it there.
see. We'll be back on Sunday, hopefully with Nigel from Maidstone, who was we were trying to get him in tonight, but he couldn't make it until too late. So hopefully he'll be here on Sunday. We will see you all then. So thanks, guys, for watching. Like I said, you know, comment below and let us know what you think about what we've said. You know, if you think we're talking a load of rubbish, then tell us. If you agree with what we're saying, then but let's spark some discussion. Let's be as positive as we can on Saturday at Chesham. So thanks, Bobbie, for tonight.
No worries, a pleasure.
And thank you, Miles.
Not a problem.
And I will see you both wherever the pickup is on Saturday.